Alrighty, welcome to the 94th edition of the MMA of Before the Battle. It's been a couple weeks, so I sort of messed that up
Almost
right
went for
off
the MMA circus there, did
right
we?
off the bat. I did. I'm so used to you doing the show last week. Surprise for the first time last week on the MMA circus. Last week on the MMA circus, we had someone not named Jed Meshew or Andrew Lawrence on for the first time since I think April,
Wow, that's
which
impressive
is
stuff.
yeah. So
Impressive stuff.
shout out to both Andrew Lawrence and yourself, Jed, for not being able to do the show. But anyways, welcome to the 94th edition of Before the Battle, not the MMA circus, not anything else. My name's Nick Baldwin. I'm your host as always, and joining me as always of MMAfighting.com is Jed Meshew, Wesley Riddle for the
As always, Wesley Whittle, as always.
yeah. Sort of get into that again. He had a decent streak because he had been away a few shows in a row, and then he came back, was doing good, but he's been gone for a while. I miss good Wesley Riddle of MMA Sucker, but he is not here for various reasons. It is just Jed and myself. Jed, we are just coming off the Christmas and holiday season. How did that go? And as I said, it's been a couple of weeks. How have the past couple of weeks been to you?
It's been good. I had a really excellent Christmas holiday. It was just quite delightful. And I'm glad that we get back in it with a pretty good week of fights in general. I know we're not going to end up talking about anything other than the UFC card this week because it's already late. It's only the two of us, but Ryzen's got a pair of events going on this week I'm pretty excited about. I'm really excited about 2018. 2017 is winding down. It was a good year in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of exciting things coming from your friends at MMAfighting.com for the year of 2018, and I'm pretty excited about being a part of that and hopefully having a bigger year just in MMA in general for us with Conor McGregor theoretically getting back to actually doing real fighting as opposed to bad boxing. So good end of the year for me. Looking forward to the year ahead and ready to talk with you about Chris Cyborg and where she ranks as the all-time female great.
On that note, just the whole MMA or not MMA fighting, but the Conor McGregor thing. McGregor versus Manny Pacquiao is definitely going to be announced within the next month or so.
I think that fight happens. I think it happens in the back end of the year, and Conor does sneak in a fight with GSP.
I tend to agree.
In late spring, early summer.
I tend to agree.
That's my official prediction at the moment.
So your Christmas was good. Santa was good to you. Santa was surprisingly good to me. I guess I shouldn't say surprisingly. I've been an okay kid throughout 2017. Haven't done too much bad. Enough good, I would say, to not be on the naughty list. Got a lot of clothes. Just throwing that out there.
You need
funny.
Clothes.
I do. This is a new shirt. Do you like it?
It's a gray shirt. Who can care?
I'm still waiting.
I'll tell you what shirt I do like.
Yes.
I do like that shirt. That's a good shirt right there. Ooh, it's so pretty.
Yes.
So pretty.
I'm still waiting for my SB Nation / Bloody Elbow gear. But a funny story, last Christmas, so just over a year ago, my dad mentioned, because I had opened, we'd all given each other a lot of clothes. Because clothes, let's be honest, it's so easy to buy, but it's also kind of boring. And not like I don't like getting clothes, because that just saves me the hassle of a couple times a year. And I hate shopping. Let's put that out there. And so me having to go to the clothes store twice a year, it gets rid of that. So that's nice. But we know getting clothes is kind of boring. So last year, my dad said, hey, next year we should do like a no clothes Christmas just for fun. And I'm like, yeah, I like that idea. And last month, I'm like, so anything, is this actually happening? By then, they'd already started Christmas shopping, and nah, it didn't happen. It was quite the opposite, actually.
Here's the thing. I'm gonna learn you something right here, and then we can get on to the fisticuffs. I'm gonna learn you something. You're a young whippersnapper. You don't know these things. Clothes are the best Christmas gifts. Particularly the older you get, the more it becomes a seamless thing where instead of people just like buying clothes and hoping you like them, they'll be like, all right, well, let's go shopping. And then you just have to act surprised when you open the fucking gift. But, this year, every year, the thing that I really want most, and I tell people, my dad's like, the family wants to know what else to get you, and I don't know what to tell them. Socks and underwear, gold. They are golden. Everybody hates them growing up. I understand that it's a lame gift as a kid. You always run out of socks and underwear as an adult. They are the best Christmas gifts, and I could not have been more happy to receive a bunch of like really utilitarian, useful clothes like socks, underwear, and
it's not even
undershirts.
just that, but any practical gifts I think are the best. I got my dad cutting boards because our current cutting boards are bent and they're terrible
So
now.
it's a good gift. It's a good
Exactly.
gift.
Exactly.
I my personal belief is that if you know somebody well enough, go shopping with them, they pick out the clothes, you buy it, wrap it, or booze. Everybody drinks booze. It'll always be useful. It lasts forever. So that's my Christmas info
It
or
doesn't
Kwanzaa.
usually
Happy
last forever,
Kwanzaa.
but
Well, but it holds without being used forever.
sure.
By the way, happy Kwanzaa to whoever's out there listening that celebrates Kwanzaa, because I know that Kwanzaa started Tuesday, I believe. Is Tuesday yesterday? I don't even know. I'm so lost in time at this point. Whatever. We've rambled too much. We need to get on to fights. And before we get on to fights, we have to do our accounting. What was the last event? Was it the peg?
I was just gonna say we mentioned Kwanzaa, and yes, Happy Kwanzaa. I believe it started yesterday on Boxing Day. Boxing Day is just a thing in Canada, not the US, right?
It's not just in
Um,
Canada; it's a British thing and
okay.
general
Well,
colony thing. But no, it's not it's not in the U.S. here.
what I was gonna say about Kwanzaa that you mentioned, if anyone's out there listening, well, we currently, if this is accurate, we have 0 people listening, and so I don't think anybody
I
listening
don't
is
blame them.
celebrating Kwanzaa. So, but
I
yeah,
do not
shout out
blame
to
them.
anybody who does join in later on, and yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, let's go on. Let's go back a little bit, back a couple weeks. UFC on Fox 26 here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We had Rafael dos Anjos clearly defeat Robbie Lawler by unanimous decision, 50-45 across the board. A bit of a surprising result despite dos Anjos being the slight betting favorite. Okay, so let's go into our results for picks, DraftKings, and bonuses, and also, of course, underdog pick of the week. Jed, what do you got for us?
The real reason Wesley Riddle has once again dodged out on being here is because he just don't want none of this. He don't want to come at the king. And I again remain your picking king with an unexciting record of 6-5. My misses, well, I guess frankly I'll just say my hits. I hit on Talib, Jordan Main, Magdesi, Marquez, Blahovic, and Teixeira. West went 4-7, bringing up the rear. He only hit on me and Chad Laprise, Marquez, and Ponzinibbio. Nikolai, you were so close. Went 5-6. You hit on Jordan Meehan, Jean McDessie, Julian Marquez, and Glover Teixeira, and Santiago Ponzinibbio. So all 3 of us got both the main and co-main events wrong. Not really our best picking day. I keep the title there. Our DraftKings results. Wesley Riddle does, I believe he is a back-to-back winner on DraftKings now. Keeps the title with a performance of 356 points. He beats me by a sound margin. I only had 285.5 points, but my 285.5 was good enough to beat you, Nicholas, by 0.5 points. That's correct.
God
Nick,
damn
you
it.
turned in a 285 point performance. I beat you by literally one significant strike over the course of 6 bouts. And for posterity's sake, Wes Riddle's winning team last week had Galore Bafando, not a good day for him, 16 points. Robbie Lawler, not a good day, 43 points. Julian Marquez, 89 points. Santiago Ponzinibbio, 100 points. Danny Roberts, 0.5 points from Danny Roberts. And Glover Teixeira, 107.5 points. And that was still good enough to take home the big prize.
Typically, 380 or so, whatever he got, isn't that, it's not that high
It's
of a,
not
of a,
it's
of a
it's not a
score.
it's not a great score
No.
realistically.
But when
But it was
you're
good enough
playing Jed
to,
and I, it'll work. It got the job done.
I mean, in an event like that where I went the best pickings was 6-5, anything happen gets crazy and kooky.
Yeah.
As far as our bonuses to wrap things up, nobody did anything worth a damn. Your fight of the night that evening was Marquez Stewart. Your performance of the night went to Alessio De Chirico and Nordine Taleb. Nikolai, you actually correctly had your underdog pick as Glover Teixeira. Teixeira did win. I also picked Teixeira to win, but I had Mike Perry as my underdog pick. He had his moments, was unable to get the job done. But all our performances were just god awful and wrong. Nobody had fight of the night. And it
What
was
was
just a bad.
Wes's underdog?
Wes's underdog was Robbie Lawler.
Okay.
He had Pietro Manga, but then obviously the whole manga thing unfolded at that point. So nobody did well on bonuses, cracking which I guess means you are the bonus winner, having correctly got picked your underdog pick, but nobody did that well. We had built up a nice streak on our bonuses, so that's unfortunate, but maybe we can close out 2017 with a good performance here. There's
With
only
the
10 fights to
bang.
choose from, though, so gets a little more cagey here. It's a
All
much
right.
smaller card than we're used to dealing with.
Okay, well, let's move on. UFC 219, last card of the year. We have made it the end of 2017. If I'm being honest, I say this probably every year, but 2017 went by very, very quickly. I don't know where all the time went, but yeah, it was a decent year. I mean, just sort of head to toe. I know the popular opinion, I think, is that 2017 was a god awful year. 2017 was okay. It wasn't a bad year. It wasn't a great year. But anyways, here we go. UFC 219, of course, going down from the T-Mobile Arena this Saturday night in Las Vegas, Nevada. In the main event, the UFC Women's Featherweight Championship is on the line for the third time. We have champion Chris Cyborg taking on former UFC bantamweight champion Holly the Preacher's daughter Holm, who, of course, will look to become the first women's two-division champion in the UFC for the second time. She, of course, fought Jermaine Duranamy for the inaugural title in February. Duranamy won a decision, and then we know what happened from there. Chris Cyborg fought Tanya Evinger after Duranamy ran away, and we have found us with a pretty fun main event, actually, between Cyborg and Holm. We also have the return of Khabib taking on Barboza and much more, and the return of Carlos Condit. How could I forget? But before any of that, that comes later on. We go to the UFC Fight Pass early prelims. We have a bantamweight contest between Tim Elliott and Mark De La Rosa, a newcomer. Of course, as you alluded to just a second ago, Tim Elliott was supposed to fight on the card we just talked about 2 weeks ago, UFC on Fox 26. He was taking on Pietro Manga. Manga failed to weigh in. The fight was scrapped. And here Tim Elliott is moving up. I actually talked to him before and after the fight cancellation, and it was a very tough weight cut. He said some stuff to me off the, I think it was off the record, so I don't know what I can get into. I probably
pretend to keep it as off the record just to cover your ass here.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do so, but I will just say that it was not a good weight cut, and he even mentioned that he was going to try and get a 135-pound fight next, and he succeeded. So who are you taking here, Tim Elliott or newcomer Mark De La Rosa?
I won't pretend like I'm super versed on Mark De La Rosa, though I believe he and his wife has now just been signed to the UFC, and that they are now the first couple, like married couple, to actually be competing. So that's kind of interesting and fun. Tim Elliott's a really good fighter. He did get short shrift just a couple weeks back, as you just kind of discussed about the Pietro Manga thing. So he's coming in. It gives me a little bit of pause on that just in general because maybe he's a little burnt out, but 2 weeks, not that big of a difference. Mark De La Rosa is a fine fighter, but he has never faced anybody anywhere near the level of accomplishment that Tim Elliott has. And, call me crazy. I sort of believe in Tim Elliott. I never really did believe in Tim Elliott. I thought he would probably do very well coming into the Tough House. He ended up obviously winning the thing, outperformed against Demetrius Johnson, and then kind of got randomly choked out by Ben Nguyen. And so I think people kind of don't know where he's at. I just still think he's a really good fighter. If you can fight Demetrius Johnson like that, I'm going to take you over a UFC debutant just in the dark all day. So give me Tim Elliott. I think he just controls his way to a decision with that funky kind of grappling style. And again, Wes Riddle's not here, but I do have his picks in front of me. He happens to have Tim Elliott by unanimous decision.
Well, I mentioned, I think, just off air that I thought this would be a pretty interesting show as far as diversity, because sometimes our picks are very equal or the same. Sometimes, as we saw last week, they are very different. I will start out on the boring note, though, and complete the hat trick. Tim Elliott is my pick. I'm going to be honest, as you sort of said, De La Rosa, I don't know tons about the guy. He's 9-0. I know James Lynch, of course, of Flow Combat and every other outlet you can name. He does the Flow Combat prospect rankings, and I believe De La Rosa has been pretty high on that list for a little while. So I'm going to sort of believe the hype. Not going to take him, but I think he can make this competitive at the very least. He's 9-0. He's a submission artist from the sounds of it. He has 5 of 9 pro wins by submission.
Yes.
So I'm going to go Tim Elliott. I think he's just, I think Tim Elliott is a better fighter than we think, because sometimes he leaves himself open. He got caught against Ben Nguyen. I think I can't say for sure the majority of the time he wins that fight, but I think in general, since his game is he's so crafty and funky, his style is so bizarre and it's hard to figure him out at most times. And he's getting better as well. If you go back and watch him in 2014 against someone like Zach Makovsky in what was his last UFC fight before Titan FC and of course the Ultimate Fighter, that is a lot different of a fighter than what we are seeing now. So I like Tim Elliott here. I think he can probably do pretty well on the mat, and he probably has a slight advantage on the feet. So give me Tim Elliott, probably by decision, but if we see some sort of choke, I would not be shocked. We go to the FS1 prelims, which start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got Louis Smolka taking on Matheus Nicolau in the flyweight division. Jed, do you like Smolka, the last samurai, or Brazil's own Matheus Nicolau?
I'm going to say I'm a little puzzled by how wide this line is. I'm going to take Matheus Nicolau here. I think his wrestling can get the job done. Basically, Louis Smolka never been a great defensive wrestler. That's been a big liability for him over the course of his career. Matheus Nicolau is a pretty solid grappler, pretty solid wrestler. I think he can just control the fight. But Matheus Nicolau, his best win is John Moraga, and that was a split decision win. I think we all think that was kind of a garbage split decision win. He clearly kind of won 2, if not 3 of the rounds in that fight. But still, John Moraga is not a world beater to be having any type of a contested fight with, for him to somehow have this type of an edge over Louis Smolka. I know Louis Smolka also riding a 3-fight losing streak, but dig a little deeper, look into who the losses are to. Brandon Moreno, who is a surging prospect in the division. Ray Borg just competed for a title. Tim Elliott competed for a title not that long ago. Gave Demetrius Johnson one of his toughest fights as a champion. These are guys who are very good, and Matheus Nicolau is taking a big jump up here. I would not be at all surprised if Louis Smolka just managed to be kind of way tougher than Nicolau expected, just sort of that big jump up. But at the same time, I don't know, man. It's hard to pit back a guy who's on a 3-fight losing streak, who hasn't won since 2015, I want to say. So yeah, just give me Nicolau here. Again, I think the wrestling's enough to maybe carry the day here. Won't be super surprised. Louis Smolka is a really good fighter. If he can pull this off, good for him, and can kind of get back in that conversation about having a conversation about being in the title mix. So yeah, there you go. That's my pick. And our boy Wesley Riddle, he agrees. He has Nicolau by unanimous decision.
It's really crazy how far Louis Smolka has fallen. He TKO'd Ben Nguyen in July 2016, and that was a big win. I mean, Ben Nguyen hadn't, picked up the Tim Elliott win at the time. He wasn't a huge name, but that was still a pretty important win. And I know he talked about maybe fighting for an interim title. I know interim titles in the flyweight division with DJ being so active never made sense, but I think that was when DJ pulled out of the Wilson Hayes fight and Louis Smolka wanted to fight Wilson Hayes for the interim title. And that was an option that, if it was a number 1 contender fight without the interim title, it actually kind of made sense. But the guy has not been able to get it together over the past year and a few months. Although, as you said, look at who he's fighting, Brandon Moreno. We didn't know at the time he was one of the better flyweights in the world, but we do now. Ray Borg has always been a top flyweight. Tim Elliott, we just talked about him. He's very crafty. He's very talented. Matheus Nicolau, he's coming off the biggest win of his career over John Moraga. But that also was in July 2016. He's coming off a 1.5-year-long layoff. He's coming off a USADA suspension. I believe it ended up being some sort of tainted supplement, or else he wouldn't be fighting, because it hasn't been 2 years. And if it was like a legit banned substance, he probably would have gotten 2 years. So admittedly, I don't know exactly how that unfolded, but if my memory serves me correctly, it was some sort of tainted supplement or one of those weird things where they do get excused and it's like tainted meat or something like that. Nonetheless, the layoff is concerning. And I think he beat John. I think Nicolau beat John Moraga at the best time he could have fought John Moraga. John Moraga at the time he had still was dealing with concussion issues. I think confidence was sort of going down. I don't know if he really wants to be there. I think the fire is back in John Moraga though. He's won a couple in a row since that fight, and he's looked pretty good as of late. So I don't know how much you can actually put into that fight. If that was the best John Moraga, that's a huge win, and I think he beats Louis Smolka. But if it's not, I'm leaning Louis Smolka, and ultimately I will pick the Last Samurai, who is a sizable underdog. I expected him to be slightly the underdog, but not this much. I know Nicolau is like minus 300 or something. Give me Louis Smolka. I like Tim Elliott. He's very crafty on the mat. He's great at controlling or getting better as well. The wrestling could be an issue just because, as sort of like Tim Elliott, he leaves himself in open situations as well. That's why Elliott versus Smolka earlier this year was such a great fight. But ultimately, Smolka is more tested. He's fought the better competition besides Moraga and Nicolau. So give me the American here. Give me Hawaii's own Louis Smolka by decision in a competitive fight.
I like it. Dissension early. That's exciting.
As I said, as I alluded to, this is going to be fun. Marvin Vettori taking on Omari Akhmedov in the middleweight division, the Italian Dream versus Wolverine. How can you, this is the real Wolverine. We're going the Wolverine, but let's be honest. This is also just Omari Akhmedov. Are you going to Wolverine or Italy's own? Italy's own. Jeez.
Wow. Nice work. It kind of hurts me to do this because in general, I think if you just blind picked Dagestani fighters to do for wins, you would have a very successful record at picking fights. That's just a good strategy. I'm going to take Marvin Vettori here. I believe he is the favorite. Let me take a look at the lines. He is. Wow, he's a minus 230 favorite. Kind of a little higher than probably would be reasonable here. Omari Akhmedov is a perfectly competent, perfectly capable fighter. I am like the one person in the world that thought he lost to Abdulrazak Alhassan in his last outing.
Yep.
He really needs, for the most part, he needs takedowns to win this fight. On the feet, I think he's just going to get outworked. I don't think Marvin Vettori is some type of huge, dangerous threat to finish him on the feet. He's a fairly tough guy, and Vettori is not a huge finisher realistically. But Vettori is just a guy who's impressed me. His loss in the UFC is to Shoeface, but he was still competitive with Shoeface and as far as he could be, despite being pretty outmatched in general, on like a physicality basis. But this is a guy who can defend takedowns fairly well, and I think that's just kind of the difference here. If he can stay upright, he's going to win just on volume on the feet. And I think he's a good enough takedown defender. I think he's younger. I suspect he'll be a little bit bigger. He has always seemed like a fairly sized middleweight to me. And he's a southpaw. Always dig a southpaw. And if he gets taken down, he has been taken down before, and he's acquitted himself fairly well. So I'm taking Marvin Vettori. I won't be surprised if Akhmedov just kind of double legs his way to victory here. But give me Vettori by unanimous decision. I don't think he gets a stoppage here. And we have more dissension, sir, because Wesley Riddle is taking Akhmedov by unanimous decision. So I need you to arbitrate. Which of us is correct? Wesley Riddle or me? Akhmedov or Marvin Vettori?
Well, it's Wesley Riddle on the island this time. Give me Marvin Vettori. I don't like him as much as the odds makers do. As you said, he's like minus 250-ish, in and around there. Minus 222 I'm seeing right now on UFC.com. And that's a little high. Omari Akhmedov is a good fighter. He's not a bad fighter. He's not a great fighter. He's never going to win a title. He's never going to be a top contender. But he's put a couple wins in a row, beating Abdulrazak Alhassan, beating Kyle Noak. He gets outstruck in most of his fights, and that's where Marvin Vettori needs to do well. And I think he ultimately does do well on the feet. He is improving on the mat or on the in the standard department quite a bit. I think working at King's MMA, working with Rafael or Cordero, definitely will help him with his overall game, but also mostly his striking. his grappling is pretty good as well. Like he has good submissions. His wrestling isn't bad by any means. And I think the biggest thing here is his grappling and wrestling defense is decent as well. And so I think I don't see Akhmedov doing what Shoeface did, as you said. I mean, Antonio Carlos Jr. was the bigger man. He had physical advantages, and Akhmedov coming up to 185 for the first time in his UFC and probably MMA career, Vettori won't be at a disadvantage because both guys have been welterweights at one point, and so very even physically. Vettori has a 1-inch reach advantage, which means nothing, and so the biggest thing though is that he won't be able to get out strong. Like he's not fighting a stronger man.
Use your words.
I'm trying. I'm
strong.
I don't know how I would put it, but he is getting.
I had no idea Vettori was a Kings.
Yes,
that makes me feel even better about my pick.
He made the move sometime earlier this year. He was living in Italy or Italia, as I said earlier, and he made the move to California full time.
I feel way better about my pick.
Yes. I'm going Vettori, though. I am talking about this fight and the other fight way too long. I'm going Vettori. I think he's a better man on the feet, and I think grappling is competitive. Give me a Vettori by decision. Next up, we got a pretty interesting fight at 145 pounds. We got Myles Fury Jury, who has not fought since April, taking on Rick the Gladiator Glenn, former WSOF champion, who is coming off a big win. He was a big underdog against Gavin Tucker in September, and he dominated Gavin Tucker. That was one of the better beatdowns of 2017, I would think, especially in the latter half of that fight when it should have been stopped, but it wasn't. Myles Jury, Rick Glenn, who do you got here? Jury is a big favorite.
I think that's fair. Look, Rick Glenn's a very serviceable guy. He's a guy who can hang around the UFC as long as he competes, basically, but he also had to take a split decision off Philippe Nover just this year. Like the Tucker win, all due props to him, hell of a performance. But any guy who goes hammer and tongs with Philippe Nover over the course of 15 minutes in the year 2017, I know Myles Jury was off for 2 years for whatever injury-laden problems he had or whatever the fuck it was that kept him out for as long as it was. But he came back, looked solid. This is a guy who at one point had a ton of buzz behind him before he kind of got upset in some back-to-back fights here. I think he can get right back on track against Rick Glenn. I like him everywhere this fight goes, I think. So give me Myles Jury. Myles Jury got a stoppage in his comeback fight. He busted out Mike De La Torre in the first round. He's always been a fairly good finisher. He's not, not a lights out one, but pretty solid. Give me Myles Jury with a second round TKO. And our boy Wesley Riddle actually agrees. I didn't even realize that. He also has Myles Jury also by a second round TKO. So that's unanimous. Are we all unanimous? Do you agree with us, or are you going the other end of this, Nikolai?
We are not unanimous. This is a split. Give me the Gladiator Glenn. And this is an interesting pick. Might just end up being my underdog pick of the week. We will determine that closer to the end. I like Rick Glenn in this fight. I don't like him a lot. I don't think it's possible to like Rick Glenn and be confident in winning this fight against Myles Jury. But let me just sort of be honest. I've never been that high on Myles Jury. I guess I don't see what other people see. He's a talented fighter. He's a decent fighter. He's good everywhere. But I just don't see that, I don't know how to describe it, like that thing in his eye where, oh, this guy's going to go far. And I just have never seen it. His record speaks for itself. He's a good fighter, 16-2. He doesn't do a lot of things bad, but I just am less high on him than I think a lot of people. Rick Glenn, he isn't. Historically, Myles Jury is a better fighter than Rick Glenn, but Rick Glenn, I think, moving to Team Alpha Male has done wonders for him. Not at Team Alpha Male, I don't think he beats down Gavin Tucker in the fashion he did. And I believe the Felipe Nover fight was before moving to TAM, just for what it's worth. And I think I know Gavin Tucker hasn't really been proven, but he had the hype already. And I think the jump we saw between the Nova fight and Gavin Tucker fight was pretty large. So I think Rick Glenn's getting better. I'm not saying Miles Jury isn't, but he's coming off again a bit of a layoff. Not nearly as big, and he sometimes handles layoffs okay. So I don't think the layoff from April is really concerning, but he leaves himself open on the ground sometimes. Rick Glenn can put jokes together a little bit. He doesn't have too many submissions, but I think he's a bit underrated on the ground. He's a decent striker. I think Jury is probably, he hits harder and he's a bit more technical, but I actually think Glenn might be able to work some takedowns. I think, I know Charles Oliveira put Miles Jury away or choked him out with a back take guillotine back in the late 2015 December, almost 2 years ago. But I don't know, like I can't compare Charles Oliveira at all to Rick Glenn as far as their submission capabilities, but for some reason I think Glenn might be able to submit Miles Jury here. So I'm going out of left field a little bit here, but give me the Gladiator Glenn by submission in round number 2. So we go to the last FS1 prelim. It is a light heavyweight bout between Khalil Roundtree Jr. and newcomer Michelle Oleksiejczuk, and that's where I'm going to leave that. Jed, you like Roundtree Jr. or the newcomer who is nicknamed Lord? I like that better. That's easier to say. And he's also from Poland. He is 12-2, 67% of his wins by knockout TKO, 8 by submission, and 25 by submission. Do you think the big underdog here can pull it off? You are muted. You might want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, God, no, he's going to get wrecked. Yeah, he's going to get wrecked. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk is not very good at whole fighting thing. Like, if you ever watched any of his fights, like his recent ones, he throws hands in the most horrible of ways. And that's like kind of seems to be what he wants to do. Like, he has power. When he hits people, he can hurt them. But I mean, that's just by the very nature of his weight division. That's a thing that usually will happen if you're at 205. But he gets hit a ton. And frankly, Khalil Roundtree's last 2 outings have been super impressive. This looks like a guy who might be things might start clicking for him. He's been fighting lower level guys, I understand, but he came into the UFC very raw off tough, and he has really impressed me a lot. And Oleksiejczuk just gets hit in the face so often when he fights. He got rocked horribly in his last fight. It looked like he was going to be stopped in the first, 90 seconds. Ended up getting up, landing a good shot, and then, all credit to him, kind of won the fight there regardless. But Khalil Roundtree is going to be much better about putting hands on him and putting him away. Khalil Roundtree with the first round KO. Take that one to the bank. And my boy Wesley Riddle, he agrees. He has a first round TKO for Khalil Roundtree, which means it's up to you to unite us or divide us. What are you, Nikolai? Are you a uniter or are you a divider?
I'm a uniter for this one. I was the divider for the last one, but you can't go against Khalil Roundtree Jr. here. One of the more confident picks of the night, I would think. We have 10 fights, and I would think he's one of the bigger favorites betting-wise as well. Looks to be the case. That seems fair. Give me Roundtree Jr. by knockout round number 1. Admittedly, don't know tons about the newcomer, but from the sounds of it, from what you said, from what others have said, this shouldn't be all that competitive. Give me Roundtree Jr., as I said, by knockout in the opening round. That brings us to the pay-per-view main card. 5 fights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We start things off in the welterweight division, number 8. Carlos the Natural Born Killer Condit is back. Former interim champion, former welterweight title challenger on multiple occasions. He is taking on number 12, Neil Magny. Pretty fun fight at 170 pounds. A lot of answers will be, a lot of questions will be answered. Whether or not Carlos Condit is really here to stay, whether he's back, whether he's a ghost of himself. And also with Neil Magny, he's coming off a little skid. He hasn't looked nearly as good as he did in recent years. Do you like Condit here, or do you think Neil Magny picks up a slight upset?
Carlos Condit is one of my favorite fighters of all time. He is one half of what I believe to be the greatest fight that MMA has ever seen. And he's a dude who, aside from being the interim, champion at the welterweight division when George St. Pierre was kind of off and about with injury issues, he's a dude who I believe should have held the legitimate title at one point in time. He is a sensational fighter. He is an action-packed fighter. He is also a fighter who has huge flaws in his game that were easy to exploit. Not easy to exploit because he's such a good offensive threat, but were exploitable. And Neil Magny has enough skills, enough tools in the toolbox to exploit those. But we're talking about a different kind of class of fighter, a different just level of where they are at. The only concern here really is that when Carlos Condit seemingly retired last year after he was kind of throttled very, very quickly by Demian Maia, it appeared to be a good retirement. He seems to have lost something in his 5-round war with Robbie Lawler. They both seem to, frankly, have taken something out of the other one. He was, Carlos Condit has one of the 5 best chins in the history of MMA, and that is not an exaggeration. I will argue that till I'm blue in the face. And he said that he got hurt by an elbow from Maia on the ground. When you start thinking like that, it is very concerning that, maybe Condit comes out and he looks like Robbie Lawler did in his last fight against Rafael dos Anjos. Old and worn and just kind of done with the game. And if he does, Neil Magny's young enough, he's got enough skills, he can compete in all phases, and he can out-wrestle Condit in large part, that'll be a sad kind of end for a fight of the caliber of Carlos Condit to kind of go down ignominiously to a Neil Magny. But I will never believe that Carlos Condit isn't the best fighter in the world because he brought me so much joy at various points in time. And so I'm going to, like with BJ Penn, continue to pick him regardless of the circumstances of the fight forever and always. So give me Carlos Condit. He hits really hard. I think he's going to land something and put Neil Magny away. This is purely an emotional pick. Even it's a logically okay pick, though. I will say that. Like, he should be the favorite here. But I won't be surprised if Neil Magny wins, but there's not a chance in hell I'm picking Neil Magny. Give me Carlos Condit by TKO in the first round. I would also, I guess it's important to say that our boy Wesley Riddle sort of agrees. He has Condit with a second round TKO. So again, are you a uniter, Nick, or are you a divider?
Well, this one again, uniter. Give me Carlos Condit, the natural born killer. Here, like, it probably on paper it's kind of competitive where you have to believe that it is just because Carlos Condit hasn't fought in a year and almost a half. We don't know if he's entirely done, if he's only partially done, or if he is rejuvenated his career once again or is about to. I highly doubt that'll happen, but anything is possible. Neil Magny is an all-around decent fighter. He is good on the feet, but probably better in the wrestling department. He's a decent grappler. He's well-rounded. I mean, that like most fighters, he's very lanky for the division. He has a big reach advantage, and Condit is not a stocky welterweight by any means, but Magny will be favored in the reach department with 5 inches and only 1 inch in the height department. So I mean, the guy obviously has a big reach advantage in most of his fights. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Here, I don't know how much it really works. Condit is good at getting inside when need be. He's good at staying on the outside when need be. He's a better striker. This is what this comes down to. Obviously, you have to keep in mind the fact that he's coming off the layoff. He's still doing some sort of coffee shop on the side. Does he really want it? We don't know. Where is his head? We don't know. But I got to believe that he would only come back if he thought he would do well and perform well because he has other things going on in his life. And that can be bad when preparing for a big, important fight, but it can also be good because if he doesn't, obviously it's like a good backup plan. But as far as the actual fight goes, I think Condit kind of chews Neil Magny up on the feet. He is dirty when it comes to striking. Elbows, obviously, from all angles, knees every so often. Neil Magny, I don't think will be able to handle the pressure. He can hit hard. He's a decent striker, as I said, but I don't think he has much for Carlos Condit on the feet. On the ground, it gets a bit interesting. Neil Magny might be able to work some takedowns, but I just don't see it happening. I think this will be a stand-up fight, and ultimately that favors Carlos Condit quite a bit. So give me Carlos Condit. Let's go decision, but a late TKO in the third would not surprise me whatsoever. We move on to the UFC Women's Strawweight division with an important fight. Number 6, Cynthia Calvillo taking on number 9, former UFC champion Carla Cookie Monster Esparza. Jed, you like the slight favorite here in Cynthia Calvillo. I shouldn't say slight. She's actually bigger than she should be. She's right around minus 250. Yeah, that's a little high, I think. She, of course, Carla Esparza is an underdog, plus 210. Who are you picking here to be a contender?
Do you have my audio?
I have your audio, and you also have 2 things in.
Yeah. The other ones, it's I didn't realize because my computer was having issues, which is why we were delayed today. No. I had to jump on my sister who's home. We're both at our parents' house for the Christmas season, and I was just trying to log into my email, and then everything popped up. So yeah, there's another one joining us, whatever, that's on the same laptop. But anyway, I was just making sure you could hear my audio. Where are we at right now?
Cynthia Calvillo and Carla Esparza.
Carla Esparza. I don't know how I feel about this one. Cynthia Calvillo, I'm going to take her here. She was riding a rocket ship right to the moon. Her last fight made me think we should all maybe break check super, super hard. She beat Joanne Calderwood. She made it significantly closer than it had to be. It was, frankly, razor thin in a fight that she clearly every second it touched the floor, she was in complete, ridiculous dominating control. But she would not shoot for whatever the fuck reason. Like, she probably could have gotten a stoppage over JoJo Calderwood within 3 minutes if she had just been committed to doing it. But she wanted to test her hand striking, or I don't know, whatever demon got up in her head made it so that she edged out a decision instead of just tapping JoJo Calderwood out, because every time it hit the floor, she was wrapping her up like a freaking anaconda. In this fight, that seems like it's going to be less of an issue, that her fight IQ, which might be questionable, frankly, probably won't come into play as much. Carla Esparza is going to look to do the same thing. She is going to press forward. She's going to throw punches in combination and try and get takedowns here. I think she actually can probably get some takedowns on Calvillo. But on the floor, Calvillo is that's kind of the question for me. If Carla Esparza gets on top, is Calvillo going to be able to kind of get her with that jiu-jitsu game that is extremely dangerous here? Or is Esparza savvy enough, a good enough grappler, that she can just kind of ride through and just control the thing? On the feet, Calvillo's volume and I think power actually here should play to her advantage. It's another one of those, man, I am sorely, sorely, sorely tempted to take Carla Esparza here over Cynthia Calvillo. And I'm trying to look over this card, and because I'm deciding on whether I should make this my underdog pick or not. You know what? I will, just because of the way she fought last time, because Wesley Riddle, our colleague, has Cynthia Calvillo taking this fight, and he's got her winning it by unanimous decision. I've picked all chalk up to this point. I'd like to be a little more dynamic. I think you might end up taking Calvillo here as well. So I'm going to be different. I'm going to try and stir the pot a little bit. Give me Carla Esparza. I think she can work takedowns here. And if she can work takedowns, it just is a question of if she can survive the ground battles. She's savvy enough, This is the same dynamic as the Rose Namajunas fight was. We saw how that worked out for Carla Esparza. So give me Carla Esparza here, that veteran savvy over. Remember, Calvillo still only has 6 fights in her career. She's got some growing up to do, and she's going to learn a lesson here. Give me Carla Esparza by unanimous decision. Nick, break the tie. Who's right?
In this one, I'm going to go Wes. It's a close fight. I am very tempted to go Carla Esparza as you are. I will ultimately not go Carla Esparza. I will pick Cynthia Calvillo by unanimous decision. Basically here, it's a simple fight. Carla Esparza needs to get it down to the ground, and she needs to maintain top control for the majority of the fight, and then she'll win a decision. But if she isn't able to secure a takedown, Cynthia Calvillo is going to eat Carla Esparza alive on the feet, not because Calvillo is a great striker. Like, she can handle herself on the feet. She can, hold her own, but Carla Esparza is just that bad of a striker. And I'm sure she's getting better working with Team Oyama, but we haven't really seen drastic improvements, or we haven't seen the jump from bad to good on the feet, so to speak. So as of right now, Carla Esparza is wrestling, and that's about it. and that works a lot of the time. But I think Cynthia Calvillo is crafty enough on the ground to be able to get out from not great situations, because I do think Esparza lands at least a couple takedowns here. I think Carla Esparza is able to secure a couple, but I think Calvillo, with her ground game being so good, for lack of a better word, I think she's able to get out from bottom and probably actually do pretty well on the ground. Very different grappling styles. Both Esparza and Calvillo are good on the ground. Calvillo more of a scrambling, looking for different, move. Or I don't know how to describe that, but she's more of a dynamic grappler, whereas Esparza is just a top control fighter for the most part. So it's going to be interesting to see how that counteracts each other. But then if they don't go to the ground, Calvillo, of course, is a way better striker. So I think Calvillo has more ways to win. And so for that reason, I'm picking her. And I'm picking her, as I said, by decision. But I do think there's a chance. There's definitely an opening here for an Esparza win. I won't be shocked whatsoever if she does pull off the upset. But I'm ultimately going with Team Alpha Male's fighter, Cynthia Calvillo. Next up, we go to Dan the Hangman Hooker taking on Mark Bone Crusher Diakiese. Pretty fun fight at 155 pounds. Of course, this was supposed to be on the prelims, and we were supposed to be talking about Jimmy Rivera versus John Lineker, or John Dodson, or maybe even more exciting, Marlon Rice. But of course, that fight, none of those fights are happening. So we have Dan Hooker, Mark Diakiese. Who do you like here? As I said, fun one at lightweight.
This one seems really straightforward to me, actually. I think it probably will be a fun one, but if you look at Dan Hooker's resume, who's he lost to? He lost to Jason Knight. He lost to Yair Rodriguez. He lost to young guys who are dynamic and throw a lot of volume. What exactly is Mark Diakiese other than a young guy who's dynamic and throws a lot of volume? Mark Diakiese is very similar to both of the kind of guys that Dan Hooker lost to here. Maybe a little rawer, certainly. He's a guy who can be exploited just in general. And we saw in his last one, Drakkar Klose did that. But I think that this sets up very well for Mark Diakiese. I think he can maybe force a wrestling game, like wrestling exchanges, just sheer power through him if he wants to. But even just beyond that, I just think on the feet he is going to be – he doesn't throw as much volume as like a Jason Knight does, but he is more dangerous than Knight in the way like that Yair Rodriguez is. So give me Mark Diakiese. If Dan Hooker wins, good for him, but I'm going to take the more dynamic guy with the higher ceiling here, and I feel pretty okay about that pick. And I will say that my boy agrees with me. Wesley Riddle has Diakiese with a second-round TKO. So once again, unite or divide. Who are you going to be with, Nikolai?
I don't know. I'm tempted to go Dan Hooker, but I don't think I can quite pull the trigger. I'll go Mark Diakiese by decision here. So not a stoppage, like Wes is saying, and I don't think you.
I did not. I think decision. Dan Hooker's is a tough guy.
Yeah, definitely a tough guy. I'm sure he's had a couple broken noses. Yeah, this isn't as straightforward. Like, I see your point about him losing to Hooker losing to dynamic fighters, Yair Rodriguez, Jason Knight, and that makes me a little more okay with picking Diakiese. But just how raw Diakiese is, it sort of throws me off. Sort of gives me some hesitation, I think, of picking Mark Diakiese. The last fight didn't go his way. I think it's probably learning experience. Working at American Top Team, he's certainly making improvements. As long as, in general, not just for this fight, but for his entire career, as long as he doesn't get too cocky, and he's confident, maybe not quite cocky. As long as he doesn't get super cocky, I think he can do pretty well in the UFC. If, of course, things can happen, the fame can get to him and all that. But we'll talk about that if it happens. With Dan Hooker, he's a bit more well-rounded than Mark Diakiese, and I think that's maybe what I was looking at. Diakiese does have a good wrestling game. We saw that in one of his earlier UFC fights. That was actually pretty surprising to see, but good in the long run. Just we know that he can, land takedowns. Dan Hooker has a bit of a submission game that I think a lot of people forget about. Three of his last four wins have all been by knockout or TKO, but the other one is a submission. He does have a bit of a submission game. He's decent on the ground, and I think he's able to maybe work some sort of ground game against Jacasey as well. So that could be interesting. But I think for the most part, it is on the feet, and I think that favors Jacasey, but not by a lot. Both guys hit hard. Jacasey is a bit more flashy. I think Hooker has slightly better fundamentals. I think, though, in this case, Jacasey is just we're going to keep seeing these improvements, these leaps, and I'm not so sure we're seeing that from Dan Hooker. And so give me Marc Diakiese, but I'm in no way confident in the pick. If Hooker wins, I won't be surprised, and I think this could be a fun fight. But Diakiese by decision is my final pick. We move on to the co-main event, and it is a very interesting fight at lightweight. Number 2, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the Eagle, taking on number 4, Edson Jr. Barboza. This is a tough one for you, Jed, because you, of course, have long said Khabib is the best 155er on the planet. You have also long said that Edson Barboza will be a champion in the UFC in 2018. So, you are wrong on one of those. If Edson Barboza wins, Khabib is not the best 155er, unless it's a terrible decision. But the champion thing prediction still stays alive. If Khabib wins, you're right about 155er potentially. That's still around. Edson champion next year, probably not happening. So who wins? Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on Edson Barboza. Pivotal fight at 155. Who walks away with the W?
You're right and you're wrong. This is my nightmare. These have both been guys that I've been backing much harder than the average bear. But I've found a way to split the difference here, and the way is pretty simple.
Draw.
No, I think Khabib has been the best lightweight on the planet for the last 3 years. I think that if the aliens came down and said, pick a champion to defend your planet, a 155-pound fighter, I would be backing Khabib to be that guy, because I think he has been the best lightweight fighter. I also think that Edson Barboza poses the worst style matchup for him in the division, and that I thought Michael Johnson was a bad style matchup for him. I think Edson Barboza is as bad a style matchup as it gets for him.
I think Jose Aldo is the worst matchup, actually.
Well, Jose Aldo is a featherweight, and Edson Barboza presents most of the same problems that Jose Aldo does. He does not have Aldo's footwork yet, though he has defense. Edson Barboza has a really, really solid takedown defense. Like, he doesn't have unbelievable, impossible takedown defense, but there's also a solid argument to be made that Jose Aldo would not have that takedown defense against Khabib Nurmagomedov, considering Khabib would outweigh him by 30 pounds. I am going to pick Edson Barboza here. I think that Khabib may still be the best 155-pounder, but that this style matchup would prove too much for him. And I think Edson Barboza is going to do it, man. I think if you get stuck fighting on the feet with this guy at this point in time, you are likely just all the way fucked. Like, Conor McGregor, people want to argue that Conor McGregor doesn't want to fight Tony Ferguson or whatever. Sure, maybe that's whatever. The guy Conor McGregor doesn't want to fight is Edson Barboza. There is no man on the planet who would whip the shit out of him harder than Edson Barboza. That fight is just bad news for him. And I don't think that we'll ever get that fight. And I don't know that Edson will get to be the champion next year, because Conor might hold the belt for another year without ever fighting again. But I think that he's going to be able to keep it on the feet here. I think he's going to be able to chew up Khabib's legs. I think he's going to show his improving footwork. He's been much better about maintaining distance, because that's always been his big weakness, is that he really needs to be all the way out to fire leg kicks and work his most effective game. He's been getting a lot better at that. You know, always the questions of Khabib's weight. If Khabib wins, I'll be thrilled. I'll be okay for my Edson Barboza 2018 champion prediction to go down, because I love Khabib more than the average bear. But I think Edson Barboza is going to do it. He is an underdog, and he is going to come out with shining colors here. And it's going to be a sad, sad day for all involved because the biggest fight MMA could have had the last 2 years was Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. That would have been the most entertaining fight on all fronts, to me at least, and I don't think we'll ever get it. So Edson Barboza, I think he even gets a stoppage late in the third round TKO win and establishes himself as for a rematch with Tony Ferguson. And then, of course, our boy Wesley, sorry, Nikolai. Our boy Wes, he's going the opposite way. He's got Nurmagomedov with a sub round 3. I'm thinking he thinks the Michael Johnson fight's going to happen again. I hope he's right. I hope I'm wrong. Nick, you tell me which of us is right, which of us is wrong. Is it Khabib? Is it Edson?
I wish I went back and watched the Tony Ferguson Edson Barboza fight before the show.
This is a fight where Edson Barboza beat the hell out of him, and then he stopped beating the hell out of him, and then he got choked out.
Yeah,
that was the dynamic of the fight.
I'm just trying to think like how Ferguson, because Ferguson ended up choking him out, of course, with the Darce choke. I'm just trying to remember. Did he just start dominating Barboza on the mat?
He put a lot of pressure on him on the feet, and I think he ended up. I don't recall. Why don't we watch it? I think he ended up cracking him on the feet, and then kind of created a weird scramble where he just got the head thing and did that. I'm Tony Ferguson. Watch out! If I have your neck, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Yeah. This is interesting. The Khabib Barboza matchup is very, very interesting. I am very tempted to go Barboza. I don't know I will. I think there's a good chance Khabib can sort of turn this into the Michael Johnson fight. I mean that's the case for a lot of fighters, for anybody who Khabib fights. There's a good chance.
He's the best wrestler in MMA. If anyone's going to take down Edson Barboza and just beat the ever-loving shit out of him, it's Khabib. He's the best wrestler in MMA. Frankly, I honestly believe he is the best wrestler MMA has ever seen from a functional standpoint. Obviously, more people with more accolades. I think he's the best functional MMA wrestler ever.
The thing is, Edson Barboza is one of the best strikers, if not the best striker, at 155 pounds. Khabib is the best wrestler. If it's on the feet, Edson Barboza chews Khabib up for dinner and eats him for dinner, I should say. If it's on the mat, well, it's the complete opposite, and it all just comes down to where the fight takes place, and that's where it gets really tricky because Edson Barboza has decent takedown defense, but his Achilles heel for his game in general has always been he falls under pressure. We saw that a little bit against Michael Johnson. We saw that against Tony Ferguson. We see that in most of his losses, and he hasn't lost too much as of late. He's getting better. I think he probably still is. But I still think the whole pressure thing, falling under pressure, still comes back to haunt him at the end of the day. I think Khabib has a rough start. I think Edson Barboza starts chewing him up with leg kicks at the beginning. Michael Johnson, I actually think, hurt Khabib a little bit. I think we might have talked about that before and you disagree, but doesn't matter. I think, but it's not a secret that Barboza will do well on the feet if it's on the feet. And it starts on the feet. I think Khabib will be a little okay to strike at the very beginning. He'll realize, hey, I don't want to get hit. I don't want to risk getting knocked out, and let's start working my game. I think Khabib's able to get inside. I think he's able to eventually get it down to the ground, and that's where he starts to do his work. I don't think this is some huge domination from either side. I think it can be competitive. Not inside one round. I think it'll be very clearly like Barboza round number 1, and I think Khabib takes number 2 and 3. I don't think it'll be like back and forth inside a round. Striking competitive, grappling competitive, very, very different styles, of course. So I like Barboza to start strong, but start to wilt under the pressure and fade away. And I think Khabib takes the last 2 rounds and takes the win. So get me Khabib Nurmagomedov by, let's go split decision. I think Barboza is able to last, but I think 2 of 3 judges will give it to Khabib. So give me Khabib by SD. And that brings us to the main event of UFC 219. It feels like we've been doing the show for, I guess, just an hour. So this is
quick. It's only 10 fights.
It's been a bit of a quick show, but I'm not complaining whatsoever. We move on to the main event. Cris Cyborg, Holly Holm for the UFC Women's Featherweight title. Cris Cyborg, as I said off the top. She won the title with the vacant title with a TKO win over Tanya Evinger this past July. That was, of course, after Jermaine Durandamy was stripped after beating Holly Holm for the title. Holly Holm is coming off a win at 135 pounds over Bethe Correia. That was her first win in quite some time, I believe. Was it since Ronda Rousey?
She had lost 3 in a row before then. Yeah.
Valentina Shevchenko, Miesha
Tate Shevchenko are the original featherweight title fight.
Jermaine Durandamy, yes,
GDR,
of course.
Come on.
So, kind of interesting. It's a great fight on paper, but you still have to consider, okay, Holly Holm has only won a fight in the past 2 years, and that was against Bethe Correia. But nonetheless, it's happening. It's going to be fun, I think. Chris Cyborg, Holly Holm, who walks away the UFC champion at the end of Saturday night?
Come on, it's Chris Cyborg. It'd be really cool if Holly Holm won. She would be. There are a lot of people saying that she'd be the women's MMA GOAT, which is really stupid because Joanna Jędrzejczyk's the women's MMA GOAT. That's not close. It's frankly not even up for debate. Like, if you think anyone other than Joanna Jędrzejczyk is the women's MMA GOAT, you're just wrong.
I think Ronda Rousey still has the case. Not that she never.
Doesn't. She's number 2, but she's very clearly behind Joanna.
I'm not so sure about Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Is clearly the better fighter. She's always been better than Ronda Rousey, but
better competition. She is just straight up beating better competition. Like, she's just better, and that's okay. Like, Ronda Rousey's number 2. Yeah. And because Chris Cyborg's not in the conversation. I'm sorry. Chris Cyborg is probably the best fighter.
We can debate this more sometime if we want. So just Chris Cyborg.
But it matters in general to the argument I'm making. I'm not debating the point here. I'm stating facts. Chris Cyborg is a better fighter than these women, but she has never beaten anybody good, and that's just by virtue of where she exists in. Like, she can't do it. Holly Holm will be the best win of her career. I said this in the last Chris Cyborg fight. When she fought Tanya Evinger, that was the best fighter she'd ever fought. Tanya Evinger was the best opponent she'd ever fought. She beat the shit out of her. It wasn't close. Holly Holm is better than Tanya Evinger. Holly Holm is the best fighter Chris Cyborg's ever fought. So this is great for that point. Like, that is a great reason for this fight here. But it's still not going to be close. She still outweighs her by a sizable amount, and frankly, probably just outskills her by a sizable amount anyway. Like, if this fight gets contested purely on the feet, maybe Holly Holm has a chance, because maybe, Cyborg does like to come in. Holm that's where Holm's bread and butter. Like, Holm is in a lot of slow, boring, shitty fights when fighters won't just charge in at her, but when they do, you get the Ronda Rousey fight. She is very good at countering. So maybe if Cyborg just comes in and wants to do that, yeah. If not, if Cyborg just comes in and chews up her legs with leg kicks, that won't surprise me. More to the point, if Cyborg just says, fuck this, ragdolls her to the floor and beats the ever-loving shit out of her, that would be the most likely scenario in my head here. Like, Miesha Tate won every second of the fight with Holly Holm that it hit the floor. She was only able to make it hit the floor a couple of times. Chris Cyborg and Miesha Tate are much different physically, much different just skill-wise in that game, and I will not be surprised at all to see Chris Cyborg clinch up with Holly Holm, chuck her ass on the goddamn floor, and then just beat the fuck out of her. I hope Holly Holm wins purely because it would be such a great story for her to, despite having several losses on her career that are legitimate and not being the best 135-pounder in the world right now, somehow upsetting and beating the two greatest, like the two most recognizable women's entities of all time. It would make a fun, interesting story, and I think that would be cool. Also, Holly Holm is just a gem, and everyone should love her. But that's not how this is going to go down. Chris Cyborg probably going to beat her up on the feet too, just with the power and physicality edges here. But maybe that stays close, and then but eventually Chris Cyborg can just be like, all right, I'm just going to take you down and beat you up. So I think Chris Cyborg gets it done inside of 2 rounds. I think she taps her out, takes her to the floor, punches her in the face, some chokes her out. Our boy Wesley Riddle has a 3rd round TKO for Chris Cyborg. I would ask if you're going to make it 3, but I know the answer. So tell me how it gets done, Nikolai.
I'm picking Holly Holm.
Wow. Okay.
Your funeral, the preacher's daughter. Let's make it a little interesting. So,
okay.
You don't know who I'm picking, Jed. You can't.
I did not. Caught me by surprise there, Chief.
I did. Didn't want to spoil it early. I knew it would be surprising, but I think Holly Holm actually has a decent chance. So this is the first time I've picked against Chris Cyborg. I probably won't pick against her ever again. And so this is sort of like the one-time shot, because if she wins, then I'm probably picking her against anyone in the world. And if she loses, I guess unless she rematches Holly Holm after Holm's a champion or whatever, then yeah. I mean, the fact is, Chris Cyborg is a monster, and she will outweigh Holly Holm, and she could just go in there and starch Holly Holm in one round, and that could be it. I totally could see that happening. But I think what you said about the Ronda Rousey fight actually makes a lot more sense than other people might think. Holly Holm is a terrific counter striker. She is not necessarily an aggressive fighter on the feet or just in general. She's very laid back. She's a counter fighter. But when fighters, when her opponents are aggressive towards her, that is when she shines. And that is why she lost to fighters like Valentina Shevchenko and even Jermaine Duranami to a lesser extent. That is why she knocked out Ronda Rousey. I mean, obviously, Ronda Rousey having a significant striking disadvantage helped as well. But if Ronda Rousey didn't come forward like a bull, that fight might have played out slightly differently. Ultimately, Holm probably still would have beat her just because of the huge striking advantage she would have. But I think there's a chance it could have looked a bit different. And I think this is where Chris Cyborg falls. I think Chris Cyborg comes forward too much. I think she will be obviously the aggressor here, but I think that sort of goes against this fight. I think Holly Holm will be able to chop her legs down a little bit. I think she'll be able to land some kicks to the body, maybe throw in a couple of head kicks. I think she'll be able to work her boxing, which I actually think is not as great as some people think, despite her boxing accolades. That's just my personal opinion, but I think she'll be able to work her striking game more than we think. Chris Cyborg obviously will be able to land a lot of offense herself. So in DraftKings, I mean, I think either fighter is actually a good pick just because I think both fighters will land quite a bit of volume and make it fairly entertaining. It just comes down to, I think Chris Cyborg, she's not going to get desperate like Ronda Rousey did, and we're not going to see some like crazy head kick, but I just think Holly Holm, her footwork is very good, and she's able to avoid a lot of the knockout or the fight-ending knockout power Chris Cyborg has or is capable of. I think this to a degree looks a little like the Ronda Rousey fight. I don't think we see the big head kick because Chris Cyborg herself, as I said, is a beast and a fantastic striker. She's very technical on the feet, and obviously she hits a lot harder than Holly Holm with her fists. But as I said, I think Holly Holm uses her footwork, avoids a lot of what Chris Cyborg throws, and gets the job done. Give me the American, give me the former champion, give me the preacher's daughter, give me Holly Holm to win a second UFC title. Of course, the former bantamweight champion will become the current featherweight champion, the first women's MMA fighter in the UFC to become a two-division champion, and make some history. So give me Holly Holm. Give me Holly Holm by decision. I think it's competitive, but let me say this. Holly Holm is by a mile the best fighter Chris Cyborg has ever fought. That was the case in her last fight against Tonya Evinger. I was not super impressed with Chris Cyborg in that fight. If Tonya Evinger can have any remote success against Chris Cyborg, I know it's completely different. She's a grappler. Holly Holm is not. But just skill-wise, Evinger did something. And if she can do something, Holly Holm can do a lot. So give me Holly Holm by decision here to win the UFC Women's Featherweight title.
Live your life. All right. Hey, that's how we do. Let's move it on. Let's wrap this shop up, man.
Let's do just that. So let's move on to bonuses, I guess. Yeah, post-fight bonuses, fight of the night, performances of the night, and then throw in your underdog pick of the week. Go ahead.
All right, I'll lead with Wesley Riddle. Wesley Riddle has the main event. He's following my strategy. He's got Cyborg Holm as your fight of the night. His performance bonuses got Khalil Rountree and Mark Diakiese. Those seem pretty square to me. His underdog pick, he didn't pick that many of them. He picked Akhmedov was an underdog, and it looks like outside of that, he went straight chalk. So that is his one underdog pick of this thing. That'll be his underdog pick for us. For me, my fight of the night, I went Condit Magny. I think that fight probably is fun and interesting for a little bit. I mean, shit. Carlos Condit is a fight of the night machine. Neil Magny had a real fun fight with Hector Lombard, so maybe we can get a little bit of that action. I don't know. It was a weird one to pick fight of the night on, frankly. Bonus is I support Wes's choice on Roundtree. We all talked about it. I think he's going to get a big time early KO. It's going to look super impressive. So throw him in for a bonus for me. Also, I think Cyborg's going to beat the shit out of Holly Holm. So give me her for the other bonus. My underdog pick here. I said it. He's my co-main event. I can't get away from it. I picked two underdogs in this card, Carlos Esparza and Edson Barbosa. He's my boy. I said he's going to be the champ next year, so I'm just going to ride on that train forever. Edson Barbosa is my underdog pick of the week. Nikolai, what about you?
Well, my underdog pick of the week. Just give me a super quick second.
Your underdog pick is Holly Holm.
No, it's actually Rick Glenn.
You also had Louis Smoke and Rick Glenn, but you can't go pick Holly Holm against Chris Cyborg and not make Holly Holm your underdog pick of the week. I'm vetoing whatever you say. Holly Holm is your underdog pick of the week.
1 second.
If you got the balls to pick Holly Holm, you better put her as your underdog.
All right, let's do it. Give me Holly Holm then.
Nobody gives a shit about Rick Glenn versus Miles Jury, so Holly Holm is your underdog pick.
Fine. But side note, I'm slightly I don't know who I'm more confident. It's kind of equal. So yeah, sure. Holly Holm's big underdog. Give me Holly Holm. Bonuses. This is going to be interesting. Main event, I am going between main event Cyborg Holm and also Hooker Jacasey. As I said earlier, I think that can be a very fun fight. I'm ultimately going to side with Cyborg Holm, mostly because it's 5 rounds. So fight night would be Cyborg Holm. Performances, we will go. Let us see now. Roundtree Jr. and Rick Glenn.
Okay. Oh wow, giving Glenn a performance too, huh?
Yes, I am all in on Holly Holm and Rick Glenn.
That means we only got one thing left to do, son.
That does mean that, and give me 1 moment, and we are good to go. All right, my DraftKings, you gave yours already in Wes's, or?
I have not given anybody's yet.
So let's do that. Let's go to Wes then.
So fortunately, yeah, we can go to Wes Riddle. Wes, his team, let me pull it up right here. I got it now. It is Chris Cyborg, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Miles Jury, Carla Esparza, Carlos Condit, and Louis Smolka. I got to say, I'm picking up a lot of what Wes is putting down. I also have Chris Cyborg on my team, but I'm taking Edson Barbosa, obviously big time underdog. I'm picking him to win outright. Similar vein, I'm taking Carlos Esparza on my team, so I share that with Wes. I'm picking her. She's an underdog. I've got some expensive fighters on the table, so gotta offset that, so that works out well. Khalil Roundtree, we all expect him to have a big day. He's on my team for that reason. Rounding my team out with a favorite and a big time and a big underdog, I've got Tim Elliott as my favorite. I just like Tim Elliott's game. He had more than a full camp here. De La Rosa coming in on short notice, big time jump up in competition. Elliott can maybe get a lot of takedowns, maybe get a submission, some shit like that. And then finally, I've learned my lesson. I've been burned the past couple of weeks in draft, or the past month or so in DraftKings, by takedowns. Takedowns have just been scoring points and making me lose things that I should be winning. So I had to pick another guy who was cheap.
Akhmedov.
That's right. We talked about Omar Akhmedov, the Marvin Vettori fight, how it was close. Akhmedov is going to be wrestling. If he gets a bunch of takedowns, even if he loses, he might still wind up with 60 points just from scoring a shitload of takedowns. So he's rounding out my team, which brings us to you, sir. How are you feeling your DraftKings squad?
Well, my DraftKings squad is actually quite different than both of yours. If you don't mind, run down Wes's real quick.
Cyborg, Khabib, Miles Jury, Carla Esparza, Carlos Condit, Louis Smolka.
Well, Wes and I share 2. That would be Khabib and Carlos Condit.
Okay.
And run down yours super quickly?
Wait, I'm sorry. So you share Khabib and Carlos Condit?
Correct.
Okay. I am Cyborg, Barbosa, Roundtree, Esparza, Akhmedov, Elliott.
Well, we share 1. And I bet you can guess who that would be.
Wait, who's my? Oh, Roundtree.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
but I bet you have Holly Holm on your team, don't you?
I sure do.
Figure
So
that.
Khabib, Roundtree Jr., Condit are the ones we share. I share with one
Hmm.
of you.
Yep.
And then I round them out with two underdogs and a favorite, Mark Chikasi, Holly Holm, and Rick Glenn.
Mark Chikaze, Holly Holm, and Rick Glenn, huh? Okay. Yep. I mean, that gets both of your bonus winners right on in there, so that makes sense to me.
So, as I said, underdog pick of the week, bonuses, DraftKings. I'm kind of all in on Rick Glenn and Holly Holm. We watched this back in a week. I could look really, really stupid, or I could just look like a genius. So we'll have to wait and find out. But that is it.
It's
We've
not a
covered
week though.
everything,
We'll
right?
watch it back in 2 weeks. We get the first week is off unless we're gonna do.
No, but what I mean is that I watch it back literally, like I go back next week
Okay,
on my phone or whatever, and
fair.
I'm so stupid, or I'm a
Fair.
genius, as I said. But
It's
anyways,
probably not the genius part, but that's it. We're done. We're done for 2017 is over.
that is it. That means a full year with you on board before the battle, because the December 30th card, UFC 207, Amanda Nunes knocks out Ronda Rousey. That was the last show with Gopalo, and you replaced Gopalo.
It was your best
And
year
so
ever. I'm pretty confident as that. So that's exciting.
viewership has gone up 100% to now 3 active viewers.
Ooh,
Actually, that
that's what's
doesn't
up.
work.
That
That
doesn't
would
work,
mean
but that's
you
fine.
would have
Let's
had,
just close it out because it's almost 2 o'clock and I have things to do.
if you moved to Winnipeg, you'd only be 1 and you would have save an hour, but okay.
No, thank you. It would also be negative 100, and I'm not
Yeah.
about that life.
Yeah, nor am I, but I kind of got forced into it. So that is it for episode 94 of Before the Battle, UFC 219 edition of the show. All 2 of you who are watching, or 3 or 4, or whoever, or however many are watching, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. If you're watching the replay, we certainly appreciate that as well. Jed, let everybody know where they can find you on social media, where they can find your MMA stuff, and anything else. You got a plug.
You can find my writing at MMAfighting.com. It is a subsidiary of SB Nation. You can find me on Twitter at JedKMashu. Give me a follow over there. You can keep up with all my stuff. And you should, because there's a lot of new and exciting things happening with me in particular going into next year. I'm enthused about it. You should be enthused about it. Nikolai, even you should be enthused about it. So it's exciting stuff. Give me a follow. And yeah, thanks everybody. It's been a solid 2017. I'm looking forward to an even better 2018. Thank you.
All right. Well, you guys can find me on the Twitter at Nick Baldwin MMA. You can find all of my writing over at bloodyelbow.com. I will be heading down to on vacation, I should say, in a couple of days. So hopefully the plane ride will give me some time to do a little bit of writing, to transcribe, because I figure I have better things to do while I'm at home than transcribe. But while I'm stuck on an airplane without internet access, might as well just listen to people talk and write what they're saying. So that's probably going to happen, and that leads to some interview articles that should be up already. So check out Bloody Elbow for that. Of course, tune into the MMA Circus with Andrew Lawrence and myself tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Of course, that was supposed to happen yesterday, but I had my 4th and final Christmas dinner yesterday. So Merry Christmas to you all. Check out Bloody Elbow, and that is pretty much it. Enjoy the fights on Saturday night. We appreciate it.
Hey, enjoy the fights on Thursday night too when we have Ryzen FF. Don't forget.
Yeah, Ryzen FF is going to be fantastic.
That's tonight. That is tonight.
Yeah, I guess. Well, right now it is. If you're in Winnipeg, where you all should be, it's 12:56. So,
that is
midnight
tonight.
is past.
That's
Yes.
Yeah, good call. Good work, buddy.
I was getting a little confused with the time, but anyways, thank you all for watching. We appreciate it. See you next year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and
Happy
enjoy the
Kwanzaa.
fights. Tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, whenever you're watching, enjoy the fights. Just do it. Goodbye.
Love you guys.